we're not taking accountability for what we've done as parents, we're not validating their emotions, and we're not respecting their boundaries as adult kids, man, if those are the only issues they have with us as being parents, they must have had a pretty good life.
It is perfectly okay to offer your ungrateful adult children a proving ground. If in fact they ask you if they can come back in your life and have told you they've changed, they're actually asking you for a bit of undeserved trust. I decided not to hang up one of my adult child's stockings this year. Yeah, I still did them. And I decided not to hang hers up, not because I'm warning the adult child whose behavior resulted in our estrangement. I'm warning the adult child who I thought she was.
Doormat Mom is a parent who is estranged from one of her adult children and is expressing her frustrations, grief, and resentment on TikTok for everybody to see, and is doing it in a way that is coming across very cruel, especially when you discover the timeline of events that she explains in her book. We'll get into that later.
So your estranged adult child is invited to the same get-together as you are. And when he walks in the room and approaches you, he addresses you by your first name. What would you do? I'd probably naturally look at him and then simply disregard what he had said. Because frankly, I think everyone in that room now understands the problem.
With her growing rapidly on TikTok and by creating a Facebook group of other estranged parents, it's bringing a discussion of why a lot of people in the newer generations, it mostly seems to be millennials and Gen Z, but I'm sure there are several people in other generations who have gone through the same experience. It goes to show that a lot of people in the current day are not putting up with being treated poorly by their parents, grandparents, family members, guardians, and as they become older, they realize it's a lot easier and more peaceful in their lives to simply go no contact, which basically means cutting them out of their life. I want to preface by saying in 99.9% of situations, going no contact with a parent or family member is something that isn't a decision made overnight. It's not something that the person who decides to do it is doing with a sense of glee or joy. It's a very hard decision to make, and it's something that doesn't just hurt the person they're cutting off, it hurts them as well. It is a very painful thing to do. It's a decision that comes with a lot of sacrifice and grief. I'm not a mental health professional or a counselor in any way, but I'm just speaking off of experiences I've lived through and seen, and also common sense. With that being said, 9 times out of 10, it seems like when someone decides to go no contact with somebody, there's usually a pretty fair reason why it's done, and in a lot of cases, especially with parents, it has to do with years of resentment and what's interesting with Doormat Mom is that she's actually giving at least more than just her side of the story away, in my opinion, because she doesn't realize how bad she's making herself sound and how bad she looks, and she doesn't realize how much self-awareness she lacks in this situation by the way that she is explaining her story and the advice she's trying to give to other estranged parents. Even other estranged parents who have come across her videos have been saying, oh no, she is not giving good advice. We'll get into that in a moment. But let's back up a little bit. Also, yes, while editing this, I am now entirely aware that there is lipstick on my tooth throughout this entire video. Anyway, Doormat Mom started making TikToks just a few months ago and has recently gotten extremely popular, or infamous, should I say. Her first video starts out with calling her estranged child a bastard and calling other estranged children bastards.
Were you a really good parent who did the best they could, and yet your child has decided to be an ungrateful little as an adult? If that's you, join me here. Follow me on this account and actually join my Facebook group, Doormat Mom No More. There are a lot of really good parents out there who did everything that they could, and yet their kids are ungrateful little. We need to connect here. We need to support each other, and we need to talk about it.
And I totally get that it can be extremely upsetting to be in a situation like this. She has every right to grieve however she needs to, but if she has any expectation of her daughter coming back in her life. I don't think making TikToks calling estranged children, including her own daughter, bad is going to be the way to go. And this is what I'm talking about when I say she lacks self-awareness, because throughout this entire time, she wants you to see her as the victim in this situation.
So you literally live selflessly for years on end for people that you created and love more than life itself. And you do so because you want them to be happy, to have everything that they need and could ever dream of. You even leap tall buildings in a single bound to make that happen. And in the end, they come back and tell you that you did it all wrong. That instead of leaping tall buildings in a single bound, you should have swam under them. And had you, they wouldn't now be dealing with all this trauma.
I get nobody wants to be told they're doing something wrong, especially when it involves parenting, but if you were just open to the idea of a conversation about what you may have done wrong as a parent, maybe you would be taking a step into the direction that gets you and your estranged child on the same page, and maybe that can get you back into the direction of repairing your relationship. Because I can guarantee that when you dismiss somebody who tries to tell you that they feel traumatized, especially if they tell you that you were the one who traumatized them, they're likely not going to want to continue any type of relationship with you. But listen, I'm no relationship counselor. I'm just somebody trying to work with common sense.
And they know you're the source of it because fictitious people around them tell them that you are.
By the way, I'm pretty sure she's referencing people like mental health professionals.
And they believe them. And that someday they're going to do better than you.
There's this quote that says, don't play chess with a pigeon, and in this case, it's don't play chess with somebody who has a very fragile ego and is unwilling to accept that maybe they've done something wrong in crucial moments of their parenting, and feels extremely entitled to not only their child's unconditional, undying love, but also everything that child has to offer because of all the sacrifices that they've made for that child, who is now an adult living their own life with new responsibilities and priorities.
If you did everything as a good parent to raise your kid, but the results ended up being disappointing, you did perfect. Maybe not by society's definition, but by God's.
I believe that everybody has the right to practice any faith that they believe in, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, obviously. As somebody who has their own beliefs, I'm not going to be the type of person that's going to roll their eyes the second that somebody starts talking about their faith or what they believe in. Again, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. With that being said, I do despise when people try to use their faith to get away with very criticizable moments, or try to use it as a way to say, look, I'm such a good person. Society's claiming that you weren't a good parent. Well, God's on your side, so everybody else is wrong.
I promise you, had he wanted you to do anything different or more, he would have made that happen.
Yeah, maybe it is God's plan for that adult child to finally get away from you. There is another TikTok that she has made, which is extremely controversial, that goes into how if your estranged adult child has children, and if they have something like a concert that you want to go to but aren't invited to, that you should go anyway and just sit in the back, so that way you can enjoy their concert and still be able to attend even though the parent doesn't want you to.
If you're a loving grandparent and your estranged adult kids refuse to allow you to see your grandkids, whether it be at the holidays or always, then you find out that those kids are going to be in a Christmas concert and you're local, don't not show up. Sit in the back if you have to, but take in the joy that comes from watching them perform. You deserve it.
You deserve a restraining order.
And they deserve to know that you're there for them and that you love them and you support them.
This idea of showing up at your grandchild's concert despite being uninvited is not a very good idea at all. Despite it sounding like grandma's still gonna be there to support her grandchildren, it actually just ends up being more confusing and hurtful for the grandchildren, because when they're finished their concert, they're not gonna understand why their parents are upset, or maybe even won't let them go up and speak to the grandmother, while the grandmother knows exactly why. What's even worse is this, though.
It sends a strong message to everyone involved.
What do you mean sends a message for everybody involved? It almost sounds like she's going to weaponize the children against the parents to get what she wants, in my opinion.
But especially and most importantly, those kids.
Again, this is probably one of her most controversial videos, and this video is the one that even had estranged parents saying, no, you shouldn't do that. We're gonna listen to a few seconds of this clip from an estranged parent. I'm not gonna play the entire video, but I will leave it linked in the description below. She goes into why this is such a bad idea.
Thinking of how your actions will make them feel long before thinking of how your actions will make you feel. Example, the Christmas concert. You're not invited. You haven't talked to your daughter in 2 years. You go to the Christmas concert. The grandchild sees you, is all excited to see you, and gets upset that they can't come see you. So what are the feelings that have now spiraled with that happening? Now you got the satisfaction of you got to see your grandchild. I've been there. I understand that desire. But what has happened is your grandchild is now upset and confused. Your daughter is really pissed off and upset and wonders if they need to take a restraining order out for you at the school. The spouse of the daughter is like, oh my God, here we go again, and has to, calm and placate your daughter.
She is going to end up going to this concert for her own feelings and not consider anybody else's feelings in the situation, especially the grandchild who she wants to see. She is just going to cause hurt for that grandchild because the parents don't want her around their child, and what that is going to do is confuse their child if they see grandma. If they see grandma at the recital or the concert and their parents say, no, you can't go up and talk to her, that's just going to be really confusing and maybe even drive a wedge between the children and their parents, and just be a way to ruin that entire night. The other creator, who is also an estranged parent, also went into what if they had plans after the concert to go out to dinner or to go get ice cream or something like that, and this just ruins that child's night because they're upset, they're confused, they don't understand.
If they had plans after the Christmas concert to maybe go for dinner or go for ice cream, those plans are ruined. Your grandchild's night of shining is ruined. Your need and desire to see your grandchild in their Christmas concert causes a spiral response of pain and being upset by you going based on your need.
It causes hurt. I can definitely even see a situation where Doormat Mom or someone like Doormat Mom could do something like this, and then after all of this happens, the child's upset, the parents are upset, it ruins the night. Doormat Mom or anybody like her could just end up blaming the parents. Well, if the parents would just let the kids see me for a few minutes, victimizing themselves in a certain way because they only care about themselves in that situation and not the consequences that it will have for others in their life. There's also some really interesting information that this woman gives in this book that she wrote, which, by the way, I personally think that this entire TikTok page, Facebook group, and everything else she's posting online regarding this is all to just promote this book she wrote. There is another creator who is a psychologist who has read her book and gave her thorough review on it. So I'm going to link that in the description below because she explains what happens in that book. It seems like the reason why Doormat Mom has been estranged revolves around a wedding with her daughter and her daughter's now husband, and was invalidating her with her wedding dress. There was actually a point where Doormat Mom in the book claims that her daughter was accusing her of fat shaming her. Yes, regretfully, I did end up purchasing the book so I could fact check this, and if I am able to, I will be returning it, because not only is this book awful for the advice that it gives, but she also didn't spell check when she wrote it. Ah yes, from the spirit of which they camel. If I understand correctly, there were going to be 2 weddings, one in the United States for the daughter's side of the family and one in Australia, and it seemed like the mother was uninvited to the Australian wedding. To make a long story short, again, I'm going to leave the book review linked in the description below. There's a lot of turmoil between Doormat Mom and her daughter, and according to what she had written in the book, she decided to publish this book during the week of the daughter's wedding. There's no way that this isn't some sort of punishment or retaliation. In other words, how petty can you be as a parent to do something like this to your child who you're supposed to love and support. Really quick, being a victim of a very serious injury isn't just a painful experience, but a very stressful one. For example, a teacher was on her way home from work as she was getting off of a highway and heading towards a stoplight. That's when her car was rear-ended by a distracted driver, causing 2 serious injuries, one between her pelvis and her spine and the other in her neck. These injuries caused issues with stability and pain management and ultimately affected her ability to continue doing her job. When fighting for compensation, she was originally offered $200,000 for her life-altering injuries. But with Morgan & Morgan fighting for her, the case went to trial and they ended up obtaining $2.6 million. If you've ever gotten into an accident, your injury could potentially be worth millions. And Morgan & Morgan has your back if you become their client. While dealing with cases, Morgan & Morgan doesn't just settle for lowball offers. Morgan & Morgan has achieved significant verdicts for victims with life-altering injuries, including over $12 million in Florida, which is 34 times the highest insurance offer, and $26 million in Philly, which is 40 times the highest insurance offer. Being America's largest injury law firm, Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 lawyers working across all 50 states. And the best part is, the fee is completely free unless you win your case, meaning no expensive upfront charges coming out of your pocket. Like I've said, if you've ever gotten seriously hurt, your case could be worth millions. And you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's so easy to do. You can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/Mimi. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you so much to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring yet another video on today's channel, and with that being said, let's get back into today's topic. This is a type of person who seems like everything in their life is transactional. She went into a long spiel that, not just in this book, I've seen her talk about this in a TED Talk. Yeah, she's done TED Talks, and I think she was also on Dr. Phil. She's talked about the loss of her husband and how she's had to basically pick everything up and do everything herself as a now widowed mother. And yeah, that's really hard, that's really sad, that's really devastating. But even in the worst circumstances, when you decide to have a child, that is not a transaction. That is a human being, and the love you give to them should not be transactional. Parents who truly love their children understand that when having children, there is sacrifice. They understand that their lives are going to change. I want to go into a few more clips here because this isn't the end of what Doormat Mom has been saying. In fact, it's just really infuriating and insufferable to listen to, if I'm being completely honest. One is that she responds to a TikTok made by a trauma counselor, and this is what she has to state.
No contact with adult children? Here are 3 major reasons why that happens from a trauma counselor.
That trauma counselor needs to go back to school, and another school, mind you. Holy moly. Really? Really? Is that what these kids feel is so traumatic in their life that they can't move forward? We're not taking accountability for what we've done as parents. We're not validating their emotions, and we're not respecting their boundaries as adult kids. Man, if those are the only issues they have with us as being parents, they must have had a pretty damn good life.
I can't imagine why your children want nothing to do with you. I can't imagine why your adult child who went no contact with you chose that path. I really can't. You seem like such a wonderful and amazing person to be around.
You lady are just a bane on parents' existence. And you're weakening our kids from ever being able to survive in this world.
There's another video she made. Hi, Stella. There's another video she made responding to a very common quote of, people aren't asked to be born, your children don't owe you anything.
There is great ignorance in believing that you don't owe your parents anything because you didn't ask to be born. What about honor thy father and mother, so that thy days be long in the land that the Lord thy God hath given thee?
What if not everybody believes in what you believe?
We teach children to guard their own survival, because in the owing of each other, we sow seeds for humanity to continue to exist individually, within families, and within communities. And when you stop teaching that, and these ties get shred, you welcome your own extinction.
then why don't you start by teaching your children basic forms of respect by respecting them too? You know, when you become older, when you learn rights from wrongs, and when you learn how to socialize and interact with people, and you develop your motor skills and, you know, just basic understanding of life, then you do have responsibilities. You do have responsibilities in life as you get older, but people don't owe you respect if you're going to be disrespectful to them or if you're going to be cruel to them. And just because you're their parent, that doesn't mean that you are automatically owed the world, especially if you are going to treat your child horribly. If you're going to constantly talk down to your children like this, and they're an adult who can make their own decisions, they are more than within their right to say, I'm not going to deal with this, and cut contact. You are not owed anybody's presence. You are not owed anybody's time or affection. Again, it seems like she treats relationships like they're transactional. Like, I've done all this stuff for you, now you owe it to me to be nice to me.
Because in the owing of each other, we sow seeds for humanity to continue to exist.
She even goes into talking about taking her children out of the will if they're going to go no contact.
What have you done with your ungrateful adult children regarding your will? Especially those who are estranged.
Which a lot of comments under that TikTok were like, why would I want to be in your will? If I go no contact with you, I want nothing to do with you. It seems like she is weaponizing a lot, and it seems like she's trying to basically threaten her way back into her child's life by being obnoxious and by being very cruel.
Right, because with so many of them equating money or what we provided with bribery or our substitution for love as opposed to just love, what makes you think that their ungratefulness yesterday or today would be any different tomorrow? So why should you leave them anything at all?
It just seems like she's trying to use this as a way to control, and she doesn't have it, and she doesn't like that she doesn't have the control that she wants. In my opinion, this entire TikTok page is not something that should be up if your goal is to reconnect with your child, and if you genuinely want to be part of your child's life, adult or not.
It is perfectly okay to offer your ungrateful adult children a proving ground. If in fact they ask you if they can come back in your life and have told you they have changed.
Do you actually think a rational person is going to come crawling back on their hands and knees to you after you made an entire TikTok page complaining about them and wrote a book about your estrangement from them?
They're actually asking you for a bit of undeserved trust. And if that requires a few mice to be thrown against it, squeak.
And in this fantasy she's living in, where she thinks that's actually going to happen one day, she also thinks that when that day comes, she's going to be the one to tell her daughter, oh no, this isn't good enough, you have to prove it to me, because they're asking you for undeserved trust. This might just be one of the most entitled people I've ever seen in my entire life. There's another video where she talks about not putting her adult child's stocking up this year as a form of like grief and stuff.
I decided not to hang up one of my adult child's stockings this year. Yeah, I still did them. And I decided not to hang hers up, not because I'm mourning the adult child whose behavior resulted in our estrangement. I'm mourning the adult child who I thought she was. And it's just too hard.
I can't imagine the Christmas that your adult child is going through, especially after releasing your book during the week of her wedding. There is a small percentage of family dynamics where the adult child or the child who has grown up, they could be problematic, or something in life could happen where they fall down a bad path. I'm basically saying, yeah, there are times when the adult child will be the reason why something happens here. But in this circumstance, I don't believe it is, and in most circumstances, I'd say at least 75%, if not higher, of the circumstances where a child goes no contact with their parent, it is on the parent. I think it's more reasonable to reflect and rationalize why this person cut themselves out of my life. You know, like, this person is my child and they feel so strongly about something that they need to take away space from me. What happened and how can I reflect on that to understand why? Maybe there's miscommunication, maybe there's misunderstanding. It might not be a 100% thing, but if you can't even take the time to reflect on why and just go immediately into victimizing victimizing yourself and blaming the other person and just being nasty and making these TikToks, I finally want to get into the Doormat Mom No More Facebook group. After seeing a few comments being made about how awful the Facebook group is, I was curious enough to attempt to take a little peek myself, hoping that they would accept me into the group, which they did. Now, I did not stay in this group long just because I was sick to my stomach reading a lot of posts made by angry, upset, estranged parents. I'm only going over 4 posts with you, but this should give you an idea of the type of environment that is in this group. I'm not going to say every single person in this group is like this. For privacy's sake, I want to say that I'm going to be censoring out people's names, but only 1 out of the 4 posts was not posted anonymously. I'll still censor that person's name out, but it just goes to show that a lot of these posts are anonymous, and to me that says there is a little bit of shame in what they're saying, whether it be subconscious or they are fully aware of that. That's just my opinion. The first post is, I'm genuinely curious. Do you think the pain of not having children is greater or lesser than the pain of having children and then having them disconnect from you?
What an odd thing to say.
Can I just say, I hate Christmas and my kids for what they have done to me. God damn it, Christmas! Look what you've done to me! Oh, and those kids too. So nothing will prepare you for this one, which is, do any of you ever worry your kids are pushed away further by attempts to get them back? My daughter hates me so much she transitioned to a man just to get back at me. And every time I see her, she looks more and more like a boy. Every time I reach out, she gets angry and says I'm not trying to understand her. She says she was always a boy. What happened to just being a tomboy? I have no idea why your children want nothing to do with you. The last one is very lengthy and somehow even worse. TikTok is the devil's playground when it comes to the estrangement. There are a lot of very angry, not just young adults, but people who are trying to destroy the family. Pseudo-psychologists with intentions to destroy the family. It's time to start bringing some light and truth there. The parents need to get on there, not just show your vulnerabilities and your desperation and your grief, but you must show them the darkness and the consequences that happens to what they are doing. Many of our generation never even knew about, I don't even think I could say that one, the very infamous mustache guy from the 1930s and 40s. They never knew the true sense of it and how easily the children were brainwashed against the parents and therefore turned them in. Brainwashing is a very real thing, and we got to get them to see that they are destroying their own families by doing this. They are comparing TikTok and estranged children to the H word that I'm pretty sure I cannot say without getting this video age restricted. They think they are doing good. They are not. Granite, there are true instances of abuse, but I'm sorry this many people have not abused their children. I don't see a lot of pseudo-therapists talk about forgiveness, restoration, and healing and trying to work it out. I just hear them screaming no contact estrangement. Absolutely, you should do that. The destruction of the family is the breakdown of society, and there are people that truly want to do that. Ever since the time of Adam and Eve, the family has been the target. What? Yeah, it was at this point that I checked out. Like I said, a lot of these posts were made anonymously. I'm sure that not every single person in this group is this unhinged, but I saw enough unhinged stuff that I was done already. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes. I checked out. I do want to say that this was just for an experiment. I wanted to see for myself if it was as bad as people were saying, and in my opinion, yes it was. But please do not go over there and infiltrate this Facebook group to harass anybody. Please do not send anybody any hate. Again, this was just for experimental purposes. I wanted to give some examples of what I saw in the Facebook group, but this is not an invitation to go and single anybody out or harass anyone. Please do not send hate to anybody mentioned in this video or anybody in this group. If you have any comments that you want to make on behalf of any of the posts that I've read out loud, make them on this video. Don't be mean, don't harass anybody if you do decide to leave a comment. So in regards to Doormat Mom, at the time of recording this video, she has amassed millions of views and thousands of followers on TikTok. I can't tell you how many copies of her book that she sold, but what I can tell you is that at the current time, it's got a 2.4 out of 5-star rating on Amazon, with a lot of reviews giving 1 star, and some people even stating what I mentioned earlier, which is that there are a lot of grammar errors. It's very hard to even get through because of it. It's very clear that there was no editor involved in this, and possibly not even a second draft. So yeah, in my opinion, not only is the book terrible because of the advice that it provides, but also because it's written horribly, seemingly without any corrections. There's a reason why your children aren't talking to you. And I'm saying at least to this woman specifically. There's a reason. And if my parent were to do something like this, I'd never speak to them again either. Absolutely not. I've been a little bit all over the place with this video. I just want to say thank you so much if you made it at this point, and I do want to say Happy New Year. I'm trying really hard to get at least one more video out before the new year. We'll see if that happens, and boy oh boy, do I have a couple deep dives coming up. I asked you guys here if you would rather see me make less videos that are longer or more videos that are shorter, and shorter means like 25 to 45 minutes instead of an hour or so long, and the fewer videos that are longer would be an hour plus, and a great majority of you stated that you wanted the longer videos. So I'm going to try and work on that, and I may still do a few shorter videos here and there, but I'm going to try and work on the deep dives. I really do enjoy them. And let me know in the comments down below if you like these like half hour to 45 minute-ish, around that time frame videos, or if you would like to see longer, more deep dive videos. I do have 2 coming up. Thank you so much. Once again, have a happy and safe new year and a wonderful beginning to 2025. I'll see you later.